In this video, we're going to look at Adeptus Titanicus, GW's game of massive robots battling it out in the dark future. It is considered by some to be one of GW's best games, but it looks very intimidating to get into. I'm going to give you a quick overview, and I'll give you some tips on how to get started with this fantastic game. Titanicus is a 6mm scale skirmish game set in the Warhammer 40k setting, more specifically during the Horus Heresy, so it's loyalist versus traitor, with both sides essentially having access to the same titans. Games will be about 2 hours, and each side will typically have around 5 titans. The models are big and beautiful, and it really feels like you're looking at a massive war zone on the table. The models range from knights, which are roughly the size of a Space Marine miniature, all the way up to the massive Warlord and War Master titans, with the War Master around 6 inches tall. The rule set is honestly great. The developers of the current edition clearly put a lot of thought into every element. The core mechanics are simple to learn, but offer enough decisions to make the game engaging. A normal game will have 4 turns, and each turn has 5 phases. Actions alternate, with a player activating one titan and then handing over to the other player to do the same. The first phase is the strategy phase, where you assign orders to your titans. It's a clever system that makes it feel like you're in the lead titan giving orders out to your team. Movement is lumbering, with facing important and limits on how much a titan can turn. This perfectly captures the feel of these huge engines and allows smaller titans to outflank and dodge out of the firing lines of the slower large titans. The damage control phase allows for some limited repairs, and decisions need to be made on what exactly should be focused on. Combat involves rolling a dice pool based on the weapon's rate of fire. If the void shields are still up, then the target gets to make some saves, with unsuccessful saves reducing the void shields. If the void shields are down, then the attacker gets to roll for damage. Then there is a final end phase where you tidy up and get ready for the next turn. All very familiar and pretty straightforward. The terminals are what make this game shine. While having all the stats right in front of you is super handy, the multiple tracks of void shields, plasma reactor, and damage taken really make the game come to life. It is a constant balancing act, trying to work out how far you can push the reactor for extra boosts, or trying to assess when your titan has taken too much damage and needs to back out of the line of fire. During the damage control phase, you have serious decisions to make over whether you repair damage to the engine, get void shields back up, or vent the reactor to make sure it doesn't overload. All of this is possible because of the terminal, which makes tracking this across multiple titans super easy. Next are the void shields, which are an absolute selling point for me. You want a high rate of fire to take down shields, but you want high strength weapons to actually do damage once the shields are down. So you have this fantastic situation where the right weapon to take down a titan changes depending on whether the void shields are up or not. When equipping your titans, you get to decide whether they'll be dedicated to burning shields down, getting the final kill, or a combination of both. On the battlefield, this impacts which titans you'll want to activate first, and which targets you'll want each titan to go for. As weapons have arcs of fire, you'll need to plan a lot of this during the movement phase. And finally of note is the plasma reactor. Almost any time your titan is activating, you can push the reactor to get a bonus. If you're moving, pushing the reactor will let you move faster or turn more. If you're being attacked, you can push the reactor to improve your shields. A number of weapons will give options to push the reactor for a bonus, or just require you push the reactor to fire the weapon at all. This adds another risk-reward element. The Warhounds, for example, definitely don't like running hot, as they have a really short plasma track. But maybe pushing the reactor a little bit to move far enough to line up that shot on the enemy Reaper is worth it. All this combined makes for a hugely tactical game, where you have decisions to make that do affect the outcome. Alright, let's have a look at what's required to get started. And here is where I'll talk about some of the challenges that have previously put people off. First up, the core set. The current core set on the left is fantastic. The Grand Masters edition on the right was part of the original 2018 release, and honestly scared people off. It was very expensive. The 2 Warlord Titans in it are big projects, and honestly the gameplay of just 2 Warlords wasn't very satisfying. The current core set is much better, along with the rules, tokens, and everything you need to play. It has 2 Reavers, 2 Warhounds, and then 2 Cerastus Knight Lancers. Splitting that box will give you 2 underside forces, but it will give you a taste. A second box will round out those numbers and make for a good game. At this stage you've got 8 Titans and 4 Knights to assemble and paint, so you should be busy for a while. Once you've got those complete, picking up a warlord for each would round it out nicely and would make for great hobby projects to work up to. These are wonderful models and can seem intimidating at first, but making them look great isn't hard. When assembling the Titans, build a skeletal structure first, leaving off the armor plates. Do dry fit the plates to make sure the poses work, but don't glue them on. This means you can spray the skeletal structure in a silver and the armor plates in the Legio colors you want. The next and probably longest step is painting the trim on the armor plates. If you can get your hands on a metallic acrylic marker, some people find that a lot easier. Once base coated, assemble everything. Personally, I add some transfers and then cover everything in basilicanum contrast and leave it at that, and the models look great. Because these are giant stompy robots, it doesn't really matter if everything isn't perfect, and you can get some really impressive looking paint schemes just using masking tape. One extra purchase you'll need before you get into building the models are magnets. There are a ton of weapon options and you want to be able to mix and match them to play around. For this you need 5 by 1mm magnets, 6 for each Warhound and 11 for each Reaver. Give it a search on YouTube and you should find a bunch of people explaining this better than I can. The weapons do have cables, but everyone leaves them off, so don't worry about that. This is going to require some fiddling, some cutting, some drilling, some green stuff, but don't worry about it being messy. It's all going to get hidden within the joints themselves. Obviously, picking your Legio is going to be a bit of a challenge. It delayed my assembly easily by a month. The main rulebook has some great examples of Legio Graphonicus and Legio Mortis Titans. These are arguably the 2 bigger Loyalists and Trader Legio respectively. Search online for Legio Titanicus color schemes to get a few more ideas. Specifically, look for the 4 Legio that have transfers included: Legio Graphonicus, Legio Furians, Legio Astorium, and Legio Astarus. Oh, and of course Legio Mortis. The different Legio do have specific rules, and you can see the back of the book for Legio Graphonicus and Legio Tempestus rules. But honestly, at this stage, I wouldn't worry about the rules, and instead I'd focus on a Legio that you are happy with painting the colors of, and that you enjoy the background of. Power levels are minor, and unlike in other games, everyone will be playing with the same Titans. You can paint the 2 sides as different Legio, or you can paint them all as the same Legio but have some sort of defining feature that allows you to set the 2 sides apart. This means that you'll be able to field them all as a single Legio if you're lucky enough to find another player interested. Next to be aware of is the terminals. In the old Grand Master box, and in the box sets of extra terminals you can buy, the terminals are made from heavy cardstock with all the holes punched out. The 2020 core box changed this to a light cardstock without the holes punched, but the token design with the nubs at the back remained the same. The best way to deal with this is to up the number of magnets you're already getting for weapons, add in a few self-adhesive ferrous sheets, stick those sheets to the back of the terminals, clip off the nubs from the tokens, and glue in magnets instead. Now your terminals are a little sturdier and the magnetic tokens will stick to them. If you're like me, you'll have plenty of 28mm scenery, but very little 6mm scenery. Titanicus can definitely be played on an empty table, but having some cover to duck around definitely improves the experience. GW does do a line of fantastic scenery kits which are modular and can be assembled in a variety of ways. There are also a number of third-party companies that do similar. Starting out though, you want to get something on the table quickly. If you have some scale agnostic terrain, that's perfect. Typically that's going to be giant rocks. If you don't have anything like that, a relatively cheap option is to pick up the RuneScape or Cityscape sets from TT Combat. These have 20 cardboard buildings ready to go and they look great straight away. At this stage you should have 8 Titans, 4 Knights, enough scenery to actually play a game. While the weapons can be switched around, starting out I'd recommend using the following. For the Warhands, the recommended loadout is a Plasma Blast Gun and a Vulcan Mega Bolter each. The Reavers are a little trickier as your weapons are limited. I would recommend pairing range, leaving you with a Reaver with an Apocalypse Missile Launcher, a Volcano Cannon, and a Laser Blaster, which tries to stay at range, and a second one with a Turbo Laser Destructor, Gatling Blaster, and Melta Cannon that tries to get in closer. For now, Don't worry about maniple rules, Legio traits, or stratagems. These are all extra bonus elements that you can add in later after you get comfortable with the game. The last thing I like to talk about at the end is blinging it all out to up that experience. We've already done a ton of that with magnetized options and terminals. Getting the models painted is a lot easier than you might imagine, and large bases give great opportunities for cool dioramas. As usual, painting up those great templates is going to be a nice extra touch. You also have a bundle of models for battlefield assets that honestly we'll probably never see play, but are great models and can be painted up quickly with just a grey dry brush. At this point, you get to enjoy all your hard work and actually play the great game that is Titanicus. And that's all I have for now. For more on Titanicus, check out the Goonhammer series that goes into in depth in this game.